Hello, and welcome to the Forensic Social Work Podcast. I'm your host, director, producer, creator, Timothy C. MacArthur. I am also a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Colorado. Wasn't that pretty? We got theme music now. I'm trying to move on up during the pandemic and make things a little more high quality because I realized my earlier attempts were not of a high quality caliber. But hopefully this time I'm getting used to this. It took some time. I upgraded, got some new equipment, so we'll see how this goes. Hopefully it's a more comfortable listen for one people out there, the two people that are listening to this. So this is episode 3, and what I wanted to address this time around is something that I feel is very, very important, especially, always, but especially at this period of time in our society, period, and in our field. I want to address burnout and productivity. And I think that burnout itself can really influence productivity. So burnout, it's so overhyped in our field sometimes, but then again, it's not. Like, we hear about it all the time. There's all these books on it. And when you're in grad school, you were hopefully given some information about it, at least, if not beat over the head with it, like I was. Burnout. But it's real. And if you don't know it, I don't know who you are. You're not, like, if you haven't gone through it, then you must be working. You're either Superman, Superwoman, or you're in a different career than I am, because it's kind of inevitable that there's spectrums of burnout, and we start getting on those spectrums. So I'm going to give you some tips here, some information that I have learned in my own experience and in my own education and reading and living, that I think will help you. If hopefully a lot of you have access to good supervision, which I'll address later, and if you don't, you need to get that. But if you can't get it for whatever reason, hopefully this will kind of help you out with some of those things you may be running into, especially at the current moment in time. So without further ado, and more guests will be coming soon, a lot more episodes for however many people get to see it. It will be a privilege. I have some amazing people lined up to guest on the Forensic Social Work Podcast. I mean, to me, they're superstars in the social work field that have a lot of really great knowledge. So stay tuned for some more guests. Ed Meg will be coming back. I might try to get her to guest host with me someday, if I can ever. She got a new promotion and she's got all kinds of new information, so it'll be helpful. So without taking up too much time, let's just go straight into this. Let me compose myself. We expect ourselves to turn on at these regularly spaced intervals, right? Meaning, go to work, 8 o'clock, take your, maybe you're lucky you get a 15-minute break, and then take your lunch break, and then you come home and you turn off, and work is off. And if for whatever reason we can't work within those intervals, or our work is subpar, suboptimal, we're getting distracted, we blame ourselves when we're not able to do that. But the first thing I want you all to realize is that we're animals. And I don't want to get into religious stuff. This isn't necessarily about religion, but we're not necessarily separate from the rest of, we have those animalistic reactions. Our brain is very similar to most animals, especially mammals and especially primates. We're not machines. That's the main point I want to drive through is we're not robots. Okay, we have emotions. we are affected by our environment and we can't just kind of turn on and turn off at will. Everyone has their own style of productivity and working, and what works for one person won't work for another one. So I can kind of give you my tips of what I found that works for me and some general like help that might help you in turn, but I can't guarantee that that is going to be the case. So you kind of need to just take in a lot of information, like listen to this podcast, but then also read books. I'm sure there's other podcasts, there's other social worker podcasts out there that are way more popular than mine that you should check out. Just try to familiarize with yourself with the subject. Try different things and see what works. Be open to experimenting. Don't just try the same thing, because obviously if it's not working, maybe it's not you, it's a bad setup. You have to find what works for you. Here, so let me give you this example of interval training. I don't know how many of you work out on a normal basis, but interval training is a way of conditioning your body to become, more fit. Basically, it's a simple way to describe it. And instead of trying to work out straight for like an hour or 2 hours, you can do a lot of really good, productive work in these short kind of spurts. So that would be, you would just do super high intensity. It's called high intensity interval training. Super high intensity workout, whatever it is, sit-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, I mean, anything, but it would be within like 30 seconds or a minute, or at the most, like 5 minutes, right? So you're not just you're not running a marathon, you're breaking it down. Sometimes people that are running, like running hills would be like that. So you're kind of just jogging along, and then where you get your real work in is when you run up the top of the hill, because your heart rate gets up, it spikes. So most of the benefit you're getting is in those short little spans of time. We translate that over to the work environment. I want to use the example of marathon runners versus sprinters. Different people have different body types, and I used to try to have the sprinter body type, which is more like lean, but that's just not me. That's not my body. I'm more of an aerobic, like long distance. I don't even have to really try that hard. I can run a marathon, but trying to be like a power lifter, my body's just not built for that. So that's an analogy to physical work or mental work, how some people can just sit and like break out a morning and just, work away. I'm going to do emails. I'm going to write a report. I'm going to read a book. But for other people, that style might not work. They may have to break it into chunky. So the only way that you know what works for you is to try different things. When you get this kind of like the light bulb goes off and you get this intuition, creativity, just go with it. You have to learn to, so in work, a lot of times we get into this unmotivated phase where we know we have to get things done, but we just don't have the motivation. And sometimes we can fake it with some coffee, but that doesn't always work. And I would encourage you to pay attention to times when you do feel productive and figure out what happened before that. If you're a painter, if you're a musician, any kind of artist, they call it a muse. You have to find your muse, but because we rely on this for our income, we have to learn how to voluntarily access our muse. Sometimes it just comes at random. And that's nice, but if you're making your money in an industry that requires you to have this inspiration, you can't just wait for inspiration to randomly strike. You have to find your muse in the moment and know how to manifest it in yourself. So pay attention to things. Maybe it is coffee. Maybe if that's your routine and that works for you, you wake up at 8 o'clock, you make the coffee, you hit it. if that works, then fine. As long as it doesn't affect any other areas of your life or your work long term, go for it. But maybe it does. Maybe you have this spike in productivity right when the caffeine hits you, and then your insulin drops after that. The caffeine goes away because you probably drinking Starbucks and you're getting all kinds of sugar, and it's more of a sugar high than anything. But how long term does that last? Like, can you just drink coffee and sugar every day, all day, and that be sustainable? I don't think so. So find something that works and is also sustainable. So here's I've struggled with this a lot. I have a lot of attentional issues. I really struggled in school. I was a non-traditional student. I did not get my master's degree until well into my 30s. So, and I, most of the people in my program were about a decade younger than me. So I was by far the untraditional student. Academia has always been a struggle for me. But over time, I've learned what works for me. And here's an example I'll use, especially that has worked during the pandemic. So I am into working out, but specifically rock climbing now. I always have a thing. So before I was like really into bicycling, and I did a bunch of centuries, and then that changed, and I got into running, and then I was like, I'm gonna do a marathon, so I did a marathon, and then I was really into the gym and trying to like get buff, but then I realized, skinny boy, I'm just gonna embrace it, and now I've gotten into rock climbing again, and so I will go to the gym, and when I'm in a block, and I'm not, I'll just go to the gym. And hopefully you have a job that allows you to be a little flexible, like I do, thank God. But if I can just sit at home and I can try to type and nothing's happening, and I'm trying to focus and it's not going anywhere, well, I'll just go do some climbing, bouldering or whatever, and in my so I'll do my workout in the intervals. I'll do a route, and then I'll take a break, or I'll do a set. Maybe I'm doing some weights, and I'll do a set. I'll take a break, and in that break, I will sit and I will, work. If it's a report I've got to write, I'll start writing, or I'll like review something. And I found I'm way more productive when I can do that interval stuff, because maybe physiologically, I'm a sprinter, but with work, mentally, I'm a marathon runner, physically, but mentally, I'm a sprinter. I've got to break it into chunks. I can't just sit and try to pay attention the whole time. It won't work. So if I can chunk it and I can like get some of my physical energy out, and then I'm better able to concentrate and focus. And the one thing that I have to say is, if you're going to do that, if you're going to go out in a public space, if you're going to go to a coffee shop, those of you that can go to coffee shops now, beware of privacy and confidentiality. Make sure no one can see your stuff, any kind of confidential information. That should be a duh, but just have to say that as a disclaimer. Have the shield on your screen so that people can't see what you're working on. Or luckily, my gym has a pretty private area where I can go and no one else is. So take advantage of that. Like I'm saying, just try different approaches. One of the inspirations for this, I had kind of done it before, but felt guilty because I was still stuck on that 8-hour work week. I listened to the book 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and I'm sure most people know who Tim Ferriss is. And for those of you who don't, he is another really famous author, podcaster, everything. He's like a millionaire. I was listening to some of I read his book, and I've listened to some of his podcasts, but the book really helped me see that why are we stuck on this 40-hour work week? Like 8 hours a day as long as you get your work done, who cares how long it takes you? So some weeks I work like 80-hour weeks. That's one of the reasons why I didn't get to the podcast, because I just was swamped with work. but other times I can get it done quick. And if I don't have anything else to do, there are other things I can do, work related, right? Like if you're getting paid, I'm not saying like don't, if you're getting paid hourly, you definitely want to be taking advantage of your boss, but the think about in like investing your time, right? Like maybe there's a book that some research you need to do, a book you need to read, a journal article you need to check out. You can do that during that time and not feel guilty about it. Whatever gets the job done and whatever makes you not not miserable. I mean, we go to these jobs for 40 hours a week, but 8 hours a day. But how many of us are working for those full 8 hours? And let's be honest, most people probably not. What do we spend most of our time doing? Emailing, web surfing, or just daydreaming, that kind of thing. So are we really, even though you're physically there, are you really being productive? Find ways to be more productive. It's not about time, it's about effort. It's about productivity. And I would encourage you to read Tim Ferriss's book. It's kind of more suited towards the entrepreneur, so some of it can get a little like monetary and selling yourself and that kind of thing, which might be completely applicable to some of the forensic social workers out there, but to others not so much. But you can just skip through and find what you need. Whatever helps you get more done, which helps with your mental health. I mean, if you can do your job and you can do it damn well, who the hell cares how long it takes you to do it and when you do it? Just get it done and no one's going to ask questions about how you did. Unless you have to be in an office, but maybe that's all the negatives of this pandemic. Maybe that's a positive that we've learned that there are other ways to get work done than sitting in an office. So it's a new time. Hopefully, I think this will stick. For some people, maybe most people. I kind of did this anyway, but more so now. It's non-traditional, but I'm probably about to become traditional. Which is a sign, if you're working a retail job. If you're working a retail job, you're probably not listening to this podcast. But yeah, if you have a physical office space that you're supposed to be in, then for 8 hours a day, then I understand it's different. But even that, if you're just sitting in your office daydreaming, like maybe find a different way, try out different things, be open-minded, be creative. I know it's hard when, especially our management, our bosses, our whole system thinks that is so traditional in a lot of ways, antiquated, thinking that we have to be at this location for 8 hours a day, 8 to 12, take your hour lunch break. But advocate for yourself, be willing to try, ask forgiveness rather than permission, maybe. But if you get fired, don't blame me. Just know how cool your boss is or whoever you have to answer to, and don't push that one too much. But yeah, just try something, whatever works. Be open to trying new things. So the next thing, again, beat over our head, is self-care. And self-care means a lot of things, but a few of the things I really want to hit. Number one is mindfulness. And I know that's kind of this new, maybe not super new, but a contemporary thing now. Everybody's into mindfulness. We can get a little burnout with it, or some people just have an aversion. We have to label, like you say meditation, and some people put their guard up real quick. Well, I'm because of religion or because of just foo-foo-y or whatever. But I do like the term mindfulness because due to Dr. Dan Siegel, and some other people like DBT, oh my God, went out of my head, teaches at the University of Washington, did the whole DBT. Marsha Linehan, there we go. They've brought it to more of the popular culture, so hopefully people are starting to not have an aversion to that word. Whatever. It's a concept of being present. And as social workers, we have to be present. That is our biggest thing. I pause because I really want you to understand how important it is that you always be present. Always, especially when you are working with clients. Yeah, another pause. Again, the most important thing is mindfulness, presence, be present. So how can we be more present? Well, the first thing that everybody talks about is this breathing stuff. That, paying attention, focusing on your breath. The default ways, you can say 5 or 6 seconds in through the nose, out through the mouth. There's also square breathing, which is like 4-second breath in. Well, as an example, you could do longer, but 4-second breath in, hold that for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and then repeat. And you can do all kinds of combinations like rectangle breathing, triangle breathing, circular breathing, like lots of shapes of breathing. There's probably even octagonal breathing. But just start with the simple stuff and then work your way up. And it's really, really hard. Oh, there's also this new thing I've been getting into, which isn't really a new thing. I've known about it for a while, but during the pandemic, I've really started to push myself on meditation, breathing, awareness, because my anxiety has been like up to here. So trying to bring it down, and this is the best way to do it. Wim Hof. He, just Google him, WIMHOFF. He's been on all kinds of stuff, like Vice, Joe Rogan. He's like broken Guinness records. He's kind of a culty kind of guy, but I don't know if he's actually a cult leader, but, you know, he kind of has that kind of cultish following. But it's legit. I mean, it's a different type of breathing. It's, I forget the type of breathing it is, but it's, like creating, you're basically hyperventilating and then you're holding to let all the oxygen, so you're super inflating your body with oxygen and you're letting it go. It's kind of neat. It's cool. Try it. Also, ice baths, which I've been doing lately, so I'm not sure if that's helped me or not. But just an example of how many different types of breathing exercises there are to get to. You can nerd out. And what I would highly encourage you to do when you first wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, and hopefully you have the time to do this. I'm not perfect at it either, because sometimes I wake up late and I gotta hurry and I gotta get stuff done. But before you look at your phone or the computer, any kind of electronic, you do this. And 15 minutes is what I do a day. I do these inversions where I like put my legs up on the wall and I just kind of lay there and just focus on my breath. That's it. And try not don't try anything. Just be there and be present. Thoughts are going to come. If you're like me, your mind is racing all the time. But just notice. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't try to be perfect about it. Like, focus on your breath. Of course, your mind's going to wander, and some thought about whatever you got to do today or whatever happened yesterday, or anxiety about the state of the world is going to come up. And you're going to get sucked down that rabbit hole. But then eventually you'll come back and you realize, oh, no, I'm supposed to be focusing on my breath, so go back. And just that art of bringing it back is going to help you over time. You will notice a change. I guarantee it. It's been preached at me for so long. I've put it off for so long. Finally, during this pandemic, I've started doing it. It's been extremely helpful. So do that. If you want a good guide on that, Dr. Dan Siegel, he's a very, very, probably the smartest guy out there, at least right now. He's like a UCLA professor, wrote tons of books. But he has this exercise called the Wheel of Awareness. That is it's a traditional kind of meditation, but he's brought it more into the field of psychology so that it's kind of contemporary and more accessible to people. And that's a really good exercise to start with. If you are doing therapy, many of you might not be, but if you are, or if you're working with clients and you're trying to be there for clients and you don't do breath work, you're missing like the foundational step. You gotta be in here. You gotta be in yourself. You've got to be able to be present in yourself and notice when things change, when your heart rate goes up, when your muscles tense up. And that will in turn help you with the client. Like if you can see, oh, is that coming from something they're doing? And you'll notice it, you'll be able to notice it in them. You know, it's things you have to be able to notice in yourself, to notice in your clients, to feel, to understand what's going on, and also to manage that transference so that you're not setting your clients off. Like if you come in a rush and you're tensed up and you're not aware of it, and you're like hyped up on caffeine and you, oh my God, you had a rush to get to work, and or you don't really want to see this client, and you're not aware of what's going on inside of you, and you sit down with that client, you're gonna trigger that client. So when you sit down, hopefully you have like a minute or two to compose yourself, bring yourself back down, realize where you're at so that you can respond appropriately. And you can be attentive to them and where they're at and what's going on with them. Grounding work is kind of a pre-step to any of this mindfulness breath work, because especially in our substance use addiction world, a lot of our clientele do not like to be in their bodies because of trauma, mostly, maybe some other things, physiological issues. They're not comfortable in their body. And if you just straight up tell them, okay, I want you to focus on your breath, that may traumatize them, because these people are used to being dissociated. They're used to being not present. Addiction is a disease of disconnection, not only from others, but from ourselves. We're trying to not be in ourselves. So you've got to focus on the grounding work, like teach people how to, if you start freaking out in your body, how do you handle that? How do you stop a panic attack? It'll help us also realize how much we disassociate, because I doubt our clients are the only ones who do that. Like daydream. I mean, dissociation can be as simple as daydreaming. I'm not by any means, the psychiatric expert on dissociation, but with our clientele, I mean, anybody that's been through trauma, you're probably going to see it. And sometimes it's really subtle. And if you're just forcing your client to go straight into their body, it's going to overwhelm them. It may scare them away. And they'll be like, I'm never doing, meditation, mindfulness. I'm never doing that. I don't want to be in my body. I want to be out of my body. My body's where all the pain is. That's a problem, is that they have not been able to process this trauma, and it's still there, and it's stuck, and it's not moving. And if they can just stay distracted and away, they don't have to face it. They don't have to be aware of it. But when they can't be distracted because the court says you can't use this substance that's worked to help you get away and escape, now you have to be here and you have to be present. How do they do that? That's a giant step for a lot of these people. We don't understand how, just focus on your breath, how intense that is for some people. So just be aware of that. Start with grounding. Teach them to I want you to just sit in your chair and feel being in the chair. Like starting with the connection of their body to the floor or some sort of outside object, and then start working into their body. And always check in with them and see how they're doing. Don't just kind of let them out there. Again, be present. Ask them questions, check in with them, see how they're doing, don't scare them away. So mindfulness, big topic, extremely important, foundational. Do it. Seriously, stop putting it off. Stop looking at Facebook, Instagram. First wake up, the news. Don't look at the news. Don't do that. Start the day on a good note. And the rest of your day. I think I heard this a long time ago, and I don't know if it's, I haven't found the research for it, but it sounds legit that the first 5 minutes or 15 minutes of your day kind of determines how the rest of the day is going to go. So I think start with that. You know, just my first step of advice for you. So number 2 in self-care is exercise. Why is that? Why am I telling you to exercise? Well, I'm going to move from exercise straight on to diet, number 3. Exercise and diet. I mean, they should kind of go together, but to tell you why. Okay, we are mental athletes. We get paid we're like mental social athletes. We get paid to use our minds and be in touch with people. Be aware of people, like help people. It requires a lot of work right here. And if you are not working out, if you're eating like crap, that's going to affect your ability to be present, to be calm, to be still, to be connected. I heard a quote, so I'm guilty pleasure, I'm into football, like American football, the NFL. I don't know if I can say that online, like the NFL. Anyway, I'm a Colorado guy, so the Denver Broncos. Von Miller was like, used to be the star player. Now, I don't know what's going on with him, but he got really sick during one of the practices or something like that, and to sit out, and they asked him, what happened, man? What's going on? And he said, I went to a movie theater and I ate some mozzarella sticks. And I realized that I'm an athlete and I can't eat like that. And his analogy was, you can't put regular gas in a Ferrari. Right? You got to put the fancy gas, because we really notice the effects. When you're really starting to do your own work and be present with yourself, you'll realize how much of an effect that no exercise and no diet have on you. Vice versa, when you exercise and you're eating right, you're going to be a lot more present. You're going to be a lot clearer. You're going to be able to connect much better with your clients. You don't exercise, this energy just kind of like builds up. It's got to go somewhere. And it just stagnates. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your clients. I'm gonna get to that in a second, but I'm gonna backtrack here. And included in diet is substance use. Now, this could be alcohol is probably the main one for most people, but also caffeine. Some people are really sensitive to it. I am one of those people. I love coffee. I'm like a coffee snob. I get my coffee from this place in Cave Creek, Arizona. This crazy little artsy town just north of Phoenix. It's called Rock, ROC2. Shameless plug. No one's ever going to sponsor this, but just because their coffee is so amazing. I randomly went in there and had they have coffee on tap. They give you like a free bag if you go to the store. It's the best coffee I've ever had. So yeah, I'm super snooty about coffee. I love coffee. It's great. But if I have coffee too much, maybe I could have it 2 days in a row, maybe 3 days in a row. But at some point, it's going to affect my sleep. And coffee does affect my anxiety levels. And I'm kind of an anxious person. So I have to be aware of the effect it's having on me. It would probably be better for me to just not drink coffee. Have some tea in the morning. I'm getting there, but I'm not there yet. Baby steps. Can't do it all. Can't just go cold turkey, But I know that if I drink coffee every single day, about fourth or fifth day, maybe even third day, I won't be able to sleep. I'm gonna get kind of manicky. My mind's gonna race, and the next day is gonna suck. it's almost like a caffeine hangover. You know what I'm saying? I will not be able to be present. I'll be miserable, tired, just lack of focus. And that's not fair. I'm a mental athlete. It's like if I was playing an NFL game, if I was an NFL athlete, I would never do anything that would compromise my ability to show up on game day. Every day for us is game day. We're out there, we're working, we're busting ass to help people. And oh, alcohol is the same thing, right? If I do indulge if I cannot drink very much, okay? Especially the healthier I get, the less I can drink. Now I do like alcohol. I know that's a controversial thing in this field, but I have one, maybe two, but I can moderate it for the one reason that if I have more than that, I'm gonna feel like crap the next day. I'm gonna sleep like crap. I'm gonna wake up and just be dead to the world. So I'm very careful with that. It's like a celebration. It's like maybe on a Friday, but no more than two because yeah, it affects my ability to be present. I have to be present always. I get paid to be present, and I'm not going to be wasting my employer's money showing up half-assed there and potentially leaving a bad impression on a client who that might kind of leave a bad impression with them for social workers in general. Like I'm a representation of this field of social workers all over the nation. You burnout social workers out there are killing it. Like not in a good way, killing it for us. Like people that are trying. Take a break, do something else because you're giving us a bad name. There are plenty of burnout social workers out there that should have quit a long time ago. Like go, I know that jobs are hard right now, but it doesn't necessarily equate to if you show up and you do a terrible job, you're kind of making things worse. I know that sounds harsh, right? We want all the social workers we can. No, we want good social workers. So be aware of yourself. Don't give us a bad name. We don't need that. just whatever substance you choose to do. And marijuana is legal now, so a lot of people can do that, but I'm not sure. Maybe some people can. I'm never ever intoxicated around my clients. Even caffeine, I'm very conscious of when I use it because yeah, it makes me super excited and giddy, and I'm not there. I'm not present. I'm not saying you got to be stone cold sober. And if you can be stone cold, like some people, you're dry drunks, they're still not present. Like just because you're not using doesn't mean you're there. Doesn't mean you're healthy. Like maybe that's step one for you, but you're not moving on to step two. The most important thing is for you to be present. And when you start to become present, you will realize what affects your ability to be present. So if going out and having a couple drinks after work affects your ability to show up the next day, maybe rethink that. I'm not saying you don't have to ever do it. Just think when you do it. Someone is paying you a lot of money to be present. Don't waste their money. Don't give us a bad name. The other component of self-care that I really wanted to address is especially recently, doom scrolling. If you don't know what doom scrolling is, it's called just going on the news or social media. It's like making yourself aware of everything that's going on in the world, and generally it's all the bad things, not all the good things. It's just like overloading your brain and your heart and your body because yeah, like some of that stuff I have a physiological reaction to. I feel the cortisol just coursing through my veins when I'm reading the news now. You can't do it all. Okay, what's the purpose of reading the news? To stay informed? Great, stay informed. But if staying informed is again affecting your ability to be present with your clients, maybe rethink it. Do you need to go on the news? Do you need to go on the news before work? Do you need to go on the news during work? Like, if you can just read the news and not let it affect you, cool, great. If you read the news and you're present and you realize like your body tense up, your heart rate go up, your heart drops, you feel that cortisol rush, that adrenaline, like, ooh, I'm under threat. And then you show up for the next appointment, like your client comes in the next appointment and they're showing up to you like that, you don't think that's going to affect them? 100% going to affect them. You have to take breaks for the world. You can't do it all. You can be there for your clients, but you don't have to take on the weight of the world. You know, for people that just go work a retail job or some easy job or easier job, like not a mental job, it requires us to be present. Maybe they can doom scroll all day long and it won't affect their ability to do their job. But we are mental athletes. Keep this thing primed and realize the effect that information, certain types of information, have on you. Take a break from the world once in a while. I mean, to me, like the world seems just fine when I'm in the gym or like outside, like whether a beach or a mountaintop. Like I'm in Colorado, so I'm a little far from a beach, but a lake, a river, whatever. Except right now, the mountaintop, there's fires everywhere. So that's not really a good example. But as long as your mountaintop isn't on fire, your mountaintop, just go wherever, or the beach. If there's a hurricane coming, so that's not helpful. But I mean, find a place away from the world is what I'm telling you. Even if it's like watching stupid TV shows, I don't know, like whatever helps you kind of tune out and take a break. I'm not saying do that all the time, but you know, we all need a break once in a while. Man, we deal with some heavy shit. I don't know if you knew that. I mean, if you don't, then you're lucky. But most of us out there are really dealing with some things in our jobs. Not to mention like what we have going on. The things that we're exposed to, it's kind of hidden from what everybody else out there. They don't know. We get to see the deep, dark secrets of the world. That's a lot. And then when you couple that on top of, you know, locally we know this is happening, and then worldwide we see the news, that's a lot. We're not immune to this stuff. It takes a toll on us. It takes a toll on our body. So find somewhere daily to hide from the world's problems. Because if you can't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to help anybody. That's that old, not meaning to single out a specific religion here, but there's a verse in the Bible where Jesus says, don't try to pull a speck out of someone like your neighbor's eye while you have a plank in your own eye. Like first you gotta take care of yourself before you can take care of other people. That's kind of cliche, but it's incredibly true. Think about it in your own life. If you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to be there for other people. So, email, social media. Last point on the self-care. I don't do social media myself because I quit doing it because of the self-care thing. Because I realized the effect it was having on me. But email, unfortunately, I can't get away from because it's a part of my job to read emails, stay informed, office politics. It is so distracting. I think that's the number one complaint I've heard from people. Email. How do you manage your emails? I'm sitting here like in my zone and then bing, 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 email pops up. Well, there's things you can do. Tim Ferriss addresses this also, so check out his book if you can. I got it on free from the library, the Libby app. Like, I don't have a ton of time, so if I'm walking or something like that, like I'm just listening to an audiobook and I don't have a ton of money, so I get it from the library. So there's a plug for you. If you're trying to find a way to get some information, lots of free information out there, high quality free information. But he gives a lot of tips on how to manage your life, specifically with the email thing. Like, set a timer, or that I will only look at emails like at 8 o'clock in the morning and 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. or something like that. And if people in your office are going to get upset about that, he's like, put an auto reply. I will only do, I'm forget what he calls it. It's a certain thing, but you know, I'm only going to be available during this and this time on email. And if it's super important, just call me. Fair enough, because nobody calls each other anymore. And when we do talk on the phone, it's like super weird. Like, hey, yeah, can you just send me an email? But emails are kind of limiting. And yeah, it's you can't ever be guaranteed that people are gonna, number one, read them, and number two, reply. So if it's super important, just call them. I mean, like, you can't get them to answer, you can't get them to call you back half the time, but it's kind of a lost art form. I think we should go better, because generally, if I have a conversation over the phone, it's a lot better than an email, and it takes up a lot less time, because I'm going to send an email to you, and you're going to reply, and then ask me a question or need more information, and I'm going to reply to you, but I'm going to reply all and add somebody, like CC somebody, or it takes up so much time. It's an essential part of our lives, but it doesn't have to be as distracting as it is. We need breaks. It's going to segue into this idea of dopamine fasting. We're a dopamine addicted society. In case you didn't know, dopamine is like the capitalist dream, because it just keeps people coming back for more. Need another hit, need another hit. Social media, so much dopamine. Bing. Oh, we get like dopamine overload. You've got to take dopamine breaks. Go for a walk with your dog and put the phone down. Things will be a lot more rewarding to you in the long run if you space out that reward that you're getting, that hit of dopamine. We're all addicts in our own way, you know? And also, like, so here's an example. If I'm meeting with my client in my office, my phone's there, it's buzzing. I have it on silent, but it's buzzing. I'm distracted, I'm not present. Again, it's all affecting our ability to be present. And as a society, we are habitually dissociated. We are an anti-present society. We do not want to be present. We want to be distracted all the time. Maybe we're collectively traumatized. Something to think about. Our society is like anti-mindfulness. All the distractions. So I don't know if you know how dopamine works, but dopamine, easy way for me to explain it is basically it's about the hunt. So if I'm out in the woods, I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go find some blueberry bushes. And so my dopamine is pinging, like me looking for these. It's about I'm going to get this. That's when I ping. That's when I get that dopamine hit. Once I have the blueberry and I eat it, dopamine's gone. I've moved on to the next thing. Oh, I need my new. Okay, I got that. Now I need this. So we think that if we get whatever we're looking for, it's going to make us happy. But the happiness is in the search. If that makes any sense. I know it's a hard concept to explain. It's interesting the way it works. It's like once you get it, happiness is over. Now you want something else, which is capitalism. Like, I'm not saying capitalism is a bad thing. I'm not going there. I'm just saying that it is kind of an addictive thing. And so in a way, we talk about our clients being addicts. In a way, we're all addicts. And we all display some kind of disturbing addictive behavior in our lives. Once you start learning how to be present, you realize how not present a lot of these things make us. All right. Second part, once you've learned how to be present with your clients, is this concept, Rogerian concept, psychology, unconditional positive regard. So if you can't be present, I'm not sure you can move up to this step. First, you got to be present, and then you can be empathetic. So regardless of the client that comes to you, some of them really push our buttons and trigger us, probably because some of them are a lot like us, and trigger things in us that we're insecure about in ourselves, which which means you got to do your own work. But when I first heard this, it was back in undergrad, way, however long ago that's been, 15 years ago. This like touchy feely hippie, I just had an initial aversion to it. Like, oh my God, that's so stupid. Now you just got to figure out what's wrong with people and extract it. You know, like that meticulous medical way, Western medicine. But it's so true. It works. It is the foundation. Well, other than present, first be present, and then it's like the second step in having a meaningful relation, like being effective as a social worker, regardless of what role you have. Like being effective with your clients, first be present, then you have to have this unconditional positive regard for them. Because if you can't empathize with them, you can't be effective. Conversely, if you can't have empathy for yourself, you can't be effective. Maybe some people are able to empathize with others, and then they're like, oh, that's so tough what you've been through. And then like you go out and you drink too much, or you eat a bowl of ice cream, and you shame yourself, like, oh, you idiot, why would you do that? Whereas if your client did that, you would never have that response, right? People say terrible things about themselves that they would never say about other people. Why is that okay? It's not. So my partner, she can be that way. I can be that way also, but I've worked hard enough that I've become aware of, I think, most of the time when I'm doing it. And my partner, she talks down herself all the time. She like puts herself down, like, oh, I'm stupid, I'm not. It's that core belief stuff. And I've had the conversation with her where I say, if someone talked to you like that, you would be offended. If I was around and someone called you those words or talked about you that way, it would be super disrespectful. I would be so upset. Why is it okay for you to do it? Why is it okay for you to bully yourself, to put yourself down? It's not. No one likes to hear that. Like you're trying to seem humble. You're not humble. You're like masochistic. You know, there's a difference. Like you can be humble and be auto-empathetic, self-empathize with yourself. And if you do something you don't like you don't have to shame yourself. In case you didn't know, shame isn't a very effective deterrent. It doesn't work. So don't do it to yourself. I mean, maybe we're afraid we're all going to become narcissists, but I don't think that's how that works. I would say with most of us, that's not the danger. You got to empathize with yourself, practice on yourself, practice empathy with yourself, practice this unconditional positive regard. The better you get out with yourself, the better you're going to be able to do it for other clients. And like, no matter how terrible the case, when you really dig into it, you can always find some way to empathize with them. Something that just didn't, some way things weren't fair. Things didn't go right in their life, no, even politicians, I'm not going to name any names, but you look back into their history, you can kind of understand why they became the way they were. We are all victims of our circumstances. Some of us have been given the tools or had the tools to overcome those circumstances, but not all of us. And we're always a work in progress. It's never like we're good, we're perfect. We're always working up. Something else happens, and then we keep working up. So just be empathetic that we're all traumatized monkeys. trying to just stay safe in the world, or even sometimes just understand the world or have some sense of power and control in the world. When you look at things that way, you can understand a lot of things. And there are a lot of really terrifying things, but to me, it helps me process things better than if I'm just thinking like, oh, some people are just evil and it's a terrible world out there. Huh. Well, just traumatized, trying to survive the best way we know how. When you can't do this, that's when you're getting burned out. I think that's the first sign. Maybe it's not the first sign, but it's one of the early signs of burnout, when you get the client come in and they're setting you off. You're angry. And even if you're present, like, it still keeps coming up in you. I think that means you're starting to get burnout. I mean, I've seen a lot of burnout. I've been burnout, and I know that's where it came from. And that's how I noticed it. So I just started like shutting down and becoming harsh to my clients, not having patience, not having empathy. The minute I lost empathy, it was burnout. So if you can empathize, you probably need to take a little break some way, somehow. Better to take a break than be ineffective, because being ineffective can be counter-effective sometimes. And like I said, give all of us a bad name. So when you notice it, you need to fix it immediately if you can. And if you can't, maybe you need to do something else for a while. Why be miserable? Again, it's not just you. It's not just hurting you. It's hurting your clients. It's hurting the field. There's nothing worse than a burned out, unempathetic social worker. They give us a bad name, and they set our clients back and maybe hinder them from making any progress. I know that I've got a bad name from some not bad, burned out social workers out there. Don't be one of them. Notice the signs, fix it. Here's the third thing that I wanted to talk about in this idea of productivity. We're moving on from burnout onto, okay, we know how to manage being burnout. Now, how do we be productive? And this is kind of a random topic, but trust me, it's related. There is it's an idea, there's a book, there's like a whole field called NVC, nonviolent communication. Oh, no, don't freak out. Don't turn away, don't run away. Listen to me. I had the same response when I was you, way back when, and I encountered this. I'm like, oh my God, this is some silly hippie crap. This doesn't work. This is stupid. This is a waste of time. I'm so annoyed with this. God, these white people. No, I'm serious. That was the reaction that I had to it when I first heard of it. Because I mean, I'm like always trying to be a tough guy. I'm like I could, I can just suck it up and I can get through it. I'm strong. I can do this. I'll just dominate the conversation. So Marshall Rosenberg came up with the field, I would say, of nonviolent communication. And I think the reason why most of us have this aversion to it is that that's not the way that we've been taught to communicate. We've been given this maybe indirect or direct, in a lot of cases, communication saying, you need to just stand up for yourself. You need to be a man. Don't be a pussy. But that's a term we use, right? It's these dominance-based approaches that we get from our society because we live in a dominant society. But those approaches only make people defensive. What is it, the like come to Jesus moment that we have? I know, again, not not being like religious specific, just that's the terminology that's out there in the world where I work anyway. If your client's kind of fucking up and you need to like set them down, tell them kind of what's up, like, look, man, okay, you've been bullshitting me around a little bit, but like it's about to hit the fan. If you don't get your shit together, you're gonna go to the big house, which might be effective, but there are ways to express that non-violently. You don't have to take this like, you need to get your shit together, you need to change right now. What's your client most likely to do? Maybe it'll bullshit you. Maybe they'll be like, yeah, you're right, I know, I'm sorry. I'll do it right. But inside their mind, they're like, man, fuck this guy, fuck this asshole. He don't know what I'm going through. He doesn't understand what just happened to me. You know what? I'm gonna go get fucked up tonight just to show him. That's from my experience working in the field. Even a judge, like, you know, and that's the way our criminal justice system is structured. It's like dominance-based approach. The judge up here presiding, the DA like pointing fingers and like, you're terrible, blah, 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 blah. And I know the drug courts are supposed to be different, but unfortunately, even those aren't necessarily standardized or followed to the letter. I mean, if you can form a positive relationship with somebody, I think that's from my experience, it's way more effective. I'll use an example of dog training. There's this approach that became popularized a few years ago by Cesar Millan. It's dominance based. He's like, and he's like redirect. He's like, you got to be the alpha male. That really, while in popular culture, because people hadn't heard of this stuff, they thought like, oh, that's great. Look at the effect he's having. But what they didn't realize is like, these dogs some of them are traumatized, and they're super anxious, or they're on guard. When you do that, like, is that going to help things? Like, I know if I'm anxious and somebody comes up to me and they're like, hey, stop it. Like, am I going to be like, oh, okay, I'm calm now? No. I'm going to become more anxious. Calm energy, positive reinforcement, positive regard, much more effective. That's such a hard concept to get through to people because of, again, the way that we are raised to think that, you know, you have to be strong or you're going to get taken advantage of. You know, the weak get manipulated, especially in incarceration, right? The worst thing you can be is weak. You can't be weak. You got to stand up for yourself. But I think there are ways to utilize these concepts even in the harshest environments, like prison. I mean, it works. It's not just me thinking like, oh, if we could all just make people feel good, they'll be better. No, there's data behind this. It really does work. And again, to go back to the dog training example, what's more effective is positive reinforcement. You know, when a dog's doing something you want him to do, him or her, you reinforce them. You give them a treat for that. Click it, whatever. And they know what you want them to do. If they're doing something you don't want them to do, you redirect them into something you do want them to do, instead of shaming them for what they're doing that you don't want them to do. And sometimes if a dog's anxious, it's not even treating. You just got to teach the dog how to be calm. Maybe we're not so different as people than dogs. I would say we should, instead of therapists, social workers, just drop it. Let's just all become dog trainers, just utilize those tricks on people, right? I mean, maybe that's behavioralism. It's a little simplistic, but it's true. Like, positive punishment, I'm not saying it's never effective, but I think that positive reinforcement can be way more effective, especially in a therapeutic environment. Why are we trying to shame people? How is that going to help you be close to your client? Like, if you need to be brutally honest and bluntly honest about what's going on, you can do that in a nonviolent way. You don't have to be super confrontational. Like, try to act like if you're feeling like you're on a hierarchy here you're trying to be above your client, like your client's boss, you got it all wrong. You need to go back to school. You and your client, the same. The same. And don't let your clients get higher than you. I mean, y'all are working here at the same level. If you can't understand that, I mean, email me or chat me or something, like I'll be happy to explain it more. But that's so foundational that you're not helping your client, you're helping your client help themselves. You can't help people, but you can help people help themselves. You can give them a leg up so that they can stand up on their own. So nonviolent communication, it's kind of similar to motivational interviewing. I've had both, gone through both courses. I find nonviolent communication to be a little more effective. MI is a little more verbose. I mean, MI works too, but I think NVC is just a better way of relating to people, because you can generalize it outside of the field. Like, nobody wants you MI, like motivational interviewing them. Like, you don't want to come home and do that to your significant other and be like, wait a minute, I know what you're doing. But yeah, we do that all the time, right? But with NVC, it's something that's generalizable that you can use in different environments. Like, you should just learn that as a default language. Things are going to go so much better for you. People are going to be more receptive to you. They're going to want to work with you. They're going to listen to you. Maybe they'll want to take your advice. So the foundation of NVC is a little different than MI in that MI, I think, is all about just like choices and like motivations. Well, because it's in the name, right? Motivational interviewing. At what point do I get where I want to make a change? And you can use NVC as motivational interview. One of the core things I want to hit on with NVC is that every action is connected to a need. So people do things because if you break it down, somewhere in there, like there's something they need, like an unfulfilled need that they were trying to fulfill by whatever action they engaged in. So if you can go backwards, and DBT uses this too, right? And I forget what they call the concept, but it's basically where you work backwards. I know I get all these terminology I'm not so great with. Kind of right-brained. I see the idea, forget the label. But anyway, it's you got to figure out what need they have. Like, what is this unmet need in their life? Once you figure that out, then you can kind of work from there. And instead of this like either or thing, where it's like, I get what I want or you get what you want. Maybe some marital therapy stuff, family therapy. We find a way to compromise when we can understand, well, this is my need, this is the need that I need fulfilled, and then I can see you and say that, oh, I see. So you weren't just being a jerk. Like, you felt like I was listening to you because you have a need to be heard or need to be empathized with. And so if I'm able to listen to you and empathize with you, again, I'm no expert in NVC, although I've been beat over the head with it a lot. It's a way to open communication instead of closing communication, because the dominance-based thing just closes communication so fast. Dialogue is done, and it doesn't really help build a relationship with people. This ties into the criminal justice system. I mean, the whole foundation of restorative justice is kind of built on this concept, right? That like a wrong happened to you. And so let me actually just sit down, and instead of just telling me like, you did this and you go away, how can does that help the wrong that I did for you? I mean, if you're strictly thinking about punishment, maybe, but that person still is missing whatever. And you don't know why I did it. What need did I have in my life that I victimized you that way? So this dominance punishment-based approach the criminal justice system take it's counterproductive. And I don't think it really works. This is going to get into political territory. I really didn't want to go there, but let's just backtrack and look at the system logically. Like, okay, if someone is a danger to the community, then yes, they need to be safely secured away from the rest of us. All right, that's step one. But what's our end goal here? You know, how long can you keep people safely secured away from the community? You know, I mean, there's life sentences, so we're just gonna give everybody life. Like, we 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 meet step one, we don't get to step two, but we're so caught up on this idea of justice. Justice is a hypothetical concept. I kill somebody, so what is justice in that situation? I go away for my life. I go away for 30 years, or in the states that still have it, like I get, you kill me, but then whoever I killed is still dead. So now I'm dead and they're dead. I mean, once you this philosophy of justice is just, there's no concrete thing that this is what justice is. You know, it's a subjective thing. And I don't even care about justice anymore. That's not, that's the DA's problem. Let them deal with that. That's the judge's problem. Let them deal with that. My concern is, how do we live in a safer community? Like, that's all I really care about. Injustice to me has like no effect on our community, unless sometimes it has a negative effect on community. So locking people up for 4 years in a traumatizing environment, and then they come out, that does not make our communities at all safer. It makes them more unsafe. If we really want safer communities, we'd focus on fixing the problem, just rather than hiding them away in hell for a few years. And I don't use the word hell like liberally. I'm saying like prison is hell. Like war is hell, prison is hell. You're torturing people there because they did bad and you want to punish them. Okay, but like, what's our end goal here? Like, are we that infatuated with punishment that we're willing to suffer ourselves just so someone else can suffer for what they did? If that's controversial to you, I'm not asking you to change your belief structure. I'm just asking you to think about these things that I'm throwing out there, because that's what I throw out in the work that I do. I mean, our whole idea of being punitive and seeking justice is not only counter-effective, it is so expensive. It costs us so much money to send all these people to prison. These industries, prison industrial complexes, in case you haven't heard, they have a lot of power. It is a money-making organization. They do not want to go away. They put them all in these crappy little towns, have no industry, and then that becomes the industry. So then you get investment in the community, where the community is like, no, don't close the prison, because then what are we going to do for work? Which I understand that perspective, but maybe if your job, your whole point in life is based on torturing people, again, I'm getting into controversy now, but you know, is that really a job you want to have? Maybe we could find a better job for you somewhere. I've read a lot of books about prison. I've talked to a lot of people who have been in prison. Fortunately, I have not. And after what I've heard, I would never want to go there. I don't see what the point of these places are. I think people that are so pro incarceration have never been there and don't know anyone that has. You think that putting people in prison makes them not want to go back? No. It's like Stockholm syndrome. You start to love it after a while. So really, these places are counter-effective. God, bad prison. CMI is going to sue my ass after they hear this one. The power that these corporations have, seriously, like, this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is for real. So much political power. I wish that social work had that much power. Imagine what we could do if we had that much political power, like the difference that we could make in society. People would be like, "Oh, send her to prison! No, 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 no!" But what? Think about the social workers. Like that would put the social workers out of work. You know, if we send everybody to prison and don't get them treatment, then the social workers won't have a job. That's the world I would love to live in. Maybe that's like I think that happens in some of these like European, Northern European countries. Uh, there's a new book that just came out that I'm on hold for. The library actually just got it for me. That talks about prison. Um, I can't remember the name. Again, titles, space in my name. I'll look it up here in a second, but I'll source it at the end of this. But it just talks about how terrible those places are. I think that it's time for us to get some power. I know that it's time for us to get some power. Like I know it's not just easy as saying that. Like I'm not the one to do that because I got too many skeletons in my closet. I can't really. Politics would go bad for me. But if you at all are into macro social work, like getting into that political level, that advocacy level, that policy change level, you are the people we need. Because here on this micro level, working individually, it's a conveyor belt. That's I wanted to get to this concept because I think that's where a lot of burnout comes from. Also, is that we just get disillusioned because we got into this career because we want to make a difference, we want to help the world. But when the conveyor belt's still spinning because of these stupid, antiquated policies, and we just get more and more clients just dumped in our lap, like just got rid of this one, but then there's like five more over here. Can't keep up. You're gonna get burned out. It's so everybody goes through that. I think when they come into the system and they realize how whack it is, they don't adequately prepare you for that at school. You have to just kind of come to terms with it, unfortunately, or you get into macro and you change the system. So this is my inspirational talk to all of you. Go out there and become lobbyists or become politicians if you don't have the skeletons that I do, and make some good in the world and start redirecting some of these services, like front loading. Okay, there's a river that flows, and it starts with kid is maybe in a domestic, like who's the first contact that this kid ever has in their life? Way upstream, maybe kid is being abused, or they don't have any pro-social supports in their life. Like, how can we move these interventions farther upstream to intervene earlier to try to divert that river from them getting involved in antisocial activity at whatever point and then getting diverted in the criminal justice system? At this time, that's kind of relevant because of Black Lives Matter and this idea of defund the police. My own thoughts on the matter, I understand that perspective. Police are very important. If you don't think they're important, go to Mexico, where the cartels run everything, and you realize that we do need some, like, either if the government doesn't have the power, some other organization will step up and take the power, like the mob or whatever. So we need a balance there. But does that mean, but when it gets out of balance and it gets too much control over here, again, it's on that punitive side. It's on how can we make the police, their job easier, like whatever you want to call them, like community safety officers. I don't care. Like they have a job to do that's essential in the community. But if we can just put our intention in our interaction with the system way further upriver to just stop it from ever getting to that point. And when we do intervene, we try to think about the source of the problem and address that instead of just thinking about punishment all the time. We waste so much money on punishment and it does no good. None whatsoever, except it gets the problem away from us for a little bit. But if you ever think prison ever changed anybody's mind, I know that I've worked with clients who said, "Oh, I didn't figure my thing out until the third time I went to prison." But why did it take 3 times? Like it is. There's got to be another way, man. I think that again, if you're gonna put them in prison, like what are you doing while you're in prison? We're spending all this money for you to. I'm going on a tangent. We're spending all this money to lock people up. What are we doing for them while they're there? What are we teaching them while they're there? Are we giving them opportunities to do anything, or are we just traumatizing the hell out of them? Some prisons are better than others. People are going to argue with me. Again, I've had lots of clients that have been in prison, told me all about it. The ones that said it was a good experience in their life and helped them, vast minority. Most of them can't, they're like war veterans. They can't even talk about what they went through. That's where we're sending people. So if I offended anyone, I'm sorry. It wasn't my intention. This is a hard subject to talk about because it's almost like religion to people. But it's a good talk to have. And I'm totally open to your point of view. I'm not closed-minded to anything. The reason that I throw these things out there because these are not my experiences, but my clients' experiences. I don't think that putting people in a torturous environment, not giving them any mental health treatment, not giving them any vocational skills, and stigmatizing them when they come out is helping make the community safer at all. And the fact that recidivism rates are so high tells me it's not working. We're paying a lot for something that doesn't work. Maybe it's time to think of something different. So with the whole defund the police, just society needs to change. I don't know if we're going to get there. I don't. I'm kind of pessimistic. I'm kind of afraid. I need to do my own work. But my higher sense tells me maybe this could be a good thing. Fire is coming through. It's burning out all the crap so that we can have new growth. Let's hope that at this point in time, we can start to have some new growth come up and some new options and do things differently because the way we've been doing things just doesn't work. The last thing that I want to talk about, really quick, is supervision. If you don't have someone to go to with your problems that is more experienced than you, that you can ask, what do I do in this situation? Or, oh, I feel like this. Like, did you ever feel like that? I don't know if you're going to be put on a path to succeed. You need to seek out good supervision. You need to have it. I was lucky. I was so lucky that in my first job out of grad school, I had an amazing supervisor who was there for me and set me out on the right path. So I highly advocate for that. And even now that I have my LCSW, I still need it, you know, because I don't know everything. And there's situations I get into all the time that I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I know that it can cost money. Luckily, some of us have people available in our lives, whether it's, you know, work paid, social work supervisor or something that can do it for us. But if you don't have that option, just try to network with other social workers. And I mean, even if it's informal and it's not like counting for clinical hours, like just having somebody that's been in the field longer than you to learn from, like what did you do in this situation, or what did you do and screw up? Like a lot of the advice that I give is not necessarily things I did right, but things I did wrong. So seek out the old timers. Lots of advice, and we all need that support. We can't do it alone. It takes a community. So the book about prison that I wanted to, I heard about and I'm going to read, but is a good reference for you if you're interested in this topic. It's called Waiting for an Echo, The Madness of American Incarceration. It's by Christine Montross. Hopefully I pronounced her last name right. I haven't read it yet, but the little bit I know about it, I've heard some excerpts. Amazing book. Really tells you how silly this whole field is. Well, that's it. We made it through, man, a long episode. There's a lot of stuff in there. Next one coming up, hopefully you have a great guest. I'm not going to drop the name yet, but super relevant to what we're saying right now and super knowledgeable. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully it's helpful. See ya.